Start recording. Welcome, folks. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Izer Pamintuan. My pronouns are he, him. I am the Senior Policy Advocate here at Alameda County Community Food Bank, and I'm thrilled to be joined here by my team, the Policy and Partnerships Department at the Food Bank. I wish we had time to have everybody introduce themselves, but in lieu of that, please go ahead and drop in as you are able, your name, pronouns, and your affiliation, if that's relevant, into the chat box. I see folks are doing so already, and it's really nice to meet everyone and see folks for the first time, as well as our friends and neighbors who have joined us before. We'd like to welcome everyone to this community conversation centering advocacy and how we can build community power in 2025. In particular, we want to extend a warm welcome to our ACCFB partner agencies who are here representing community and who are joining us at this call. Do want to let you know that we are going to be posting a Spanish language summary of the presentation in real time in the chat box. And I want to say thank you to Jessica for helping us out here today. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So here is our overall agenda and run of show for today's conversation. I have three basic goals that I hope to achieve in the next hour with you all. First, we want to inform you of what's being done in state government in Sacramento to protect immigrant rights in 2025. Number two, we want to let you know how you can be involved in advocacy and join in the fight to protect immigrant rights and other aspects of our work to achieve food justice and end hunger in our community. And then finally, we want to have a conversation with you about how we can all build solidarity and fight disinformation. And in fact, the bulk of our time in the second half of this conversation will be doing just that. And so we'll have a few breakout rooms, and we hope to share this conversation with you all. But first off, we wanted to start off with an opening question. Because of time constraints, we will only be able to get a show of hands from maybe 3 or 4 folks. But for the rest of the folks who want to answer, and we hope everyone does, we encourage you to drop in your answer in the chat box. But this is our opening question for you all today, and can give you folks a few moments to reflect, and then we encourage folks to raise your hands. But our question is, where are you finding hope today? Where are you finding hope today? And actually, we're going to go ahead and stop sharing our screen so we can see folks and see if anyone can raise their hands, as well as feel free to chime in the chat box. But where are folks finding hope today? And we'll get maybe 3 folks who are who feel moved to speak up as well. Where are folks finding hope? Well, anyone on my team like to start us off and share where we're finding hope? We've had some conversations. We've been doing a lot of planning. Elise?
Yeah, thank you, Ezer. I was sharing with someone yesterday, I saw that there was a protest by some high schoolers in San Jose maybe a few days ago, and it was just really beautiful to see youth out in the streets, like dancing and singing and really, reclaiming that this is our community and everyone is welcome here. So that's giving me hope.
Thank you, Lisa. Anyone else?
Hey everyone, good morning. Jessica here. I think for me, it's all community and orgs coming together. I just got off a meeting with East Bay Sanctuary Covenant, and they're just like all in, literally told me get the word out for like our Know Your Rights workshops, get your internal staff to get trained, and literally just spread the word. We all must get trained, have resources. And so that was just an example of like, okay, there's hope. We're all in it together.
Thank you, Jessica. Dennis?
Yeah, I think we've had some judges step up defending the Constitution, which I think is very important to this whole country, not only locally, but the whole country, so that they're speaking up for us, and I appreciate that.
Thank you, Dennis. Where else are folks finding hope?
I can agree with Jessica. I'd like to add on that, like seeing all the Know Your Rights workshops, informing the community is very important. Like you're seeing it all over social media, like people understanding that they have rights. Um, yeah, so that's where I see hope, like informing my community and seeing that others are also stepping in and informing the community. Like that's a huge relief in a way because I know a lot of our immigrant community can be so vulnerable and can give up their rights, and informing them that they do have rights to defending themselves. It's where I find hope.
Thank you, Anna. And I think we'll have one more person who'd like to share where you're finding hope today. Well, I'd like to share. I think for me, I find hope maybe counterintuitively uh, through studying history. I think that sometimes when we are faced with the difficulties of the moment, it might be hard to find perspective. But then when we see the lives and the biographies and the successful social movements, particularly through the 19th and 20th centuries, um, sometimes we remember their victories, but we don't always remember the periods in the middle where they felt uncertain, where they felt defeated maybe, and the ebbs and flows that sometimes you have progress and two steps forward and you take a step back. Um, but the movement toward justice can take generations, and we all must have hope that ultimately all our sacrifices and struggles will achieve victory in the end, just like the people that we look up to and we read their biographies had that hope as well. So I guess with that, let's get started. Let's go ahead and restart sharing our screen, and we'll jump to slide 3, where we'll be talking about the Food for All campaign. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. So Alameda County Community Food Bank believes that everyone belongs in our community, regardless of your documentation status, and that food is a basic human right. And so, as I mentioned earlier, the theme of today's conversation is fighting for immigrant rights. And we're deeply concerned about threats to immigrants, especially from the federal government. But we know that we can build the grassroots power to fight for our community. And so we hope that this conversation can revolve around how we can achieve this. So for several years, ACCFB has been a member of a statewide campaign called the Food for All Coalition. And it involves advocacy organizations, immigrant rights activists, and food banks across California. And so what we're working for is we're working to expand immigrant access to critical safety net programs, particularly by expanding access to a program that's called the California Food Assistance Program, also known as CFAP. This program provides CalFresh equivalent benefits to undocumented Californians who would otherwise be eligible for SNAP, also known as food stamps, but are prohibited by federal rules. California would pay for those CalFresh benefits instead. So what have we achieved so far through this campaign? Well, in 2023, we had a major victory. We won an expansion of CFAP CalFresh equivalent benefits to undocumented Californians ages 55 and older starting in 2025. Now, unfortunately, last year, because of a record budget deficit that California was facing, the state was forced to delay this expansion to 2027. However, we, along with other food banks and the California Association of Food Banks, we were able to get the governor to at least keep his commitment to the expansion, even if it was delayed a couple of years. So that brings us to today. And we're planning our advocacy work for 2025 and moving forward. And this year we have two goals. First, we're working to protect the expansion of CalFresh equivalent benefits to undocumented Californians ages 55 and older. And second, and ultimately this is the ultimate goal, food for all means food for all. And we're working to expand access to these benefits to all undocumented Californians, regardless of their age or immigration status. And this is where folks on this call come in. We need your help to gather stories from community members who would be most impacted by an expansion in CalFresh access when we meet with elected officials in Sacramento and share these stories with them. And later on in this conversation, we'll be letting you know exactly how you can do that. Let's move on to the next slide. So in December, Governor Gavin Newsom called a special session of the California legislature. And this was notable because this was basically a full month before when they would usually start working. And the reason why they started working early in this special session was it was an urgent moment. California needed to come up with a plan to protect immigrant rights, reproductive rights, LGBTQ plus rights, and the environment. And in thinking about immigrant rights in particular, there are three bills protecting immigrant rights that have caught the food bank's attention. And I want to speak really briefly about these three bills to you. The first pair of bills, one is coming from the Senate. It's Senate Bill 48 by Senator Gonzalez, and the other is Assembly Bill 49, would prohibit school districts, county offices of education, or charter schools and their staff members from granting ICE permission to access a school campus without a warrant from a judge. So it prohibits that kind of collaboration in order to protect students. And then the third bill rather, is Assembly Bill 15 by Assemblymember Gibson, which would limit collaboration between state prison systems and federal immigration enforcement. Now, we're currently studying and researching this bill, talking to coalition partners, and I do want to let you know that all three of these bills are still in the early stages of being considered. It's going to be several stages before they finally get to a vote, and then eventually, potentially, get on the governor's desk for signature. But if you sign up at ACCFB.org/advocacy, you can get updates about when you can send a message to your legislators to take action on these bills. And we will be posting the links in the chat box later on, as well as in our follow-up email. So I'm really excited at this point because we have a special guest and partner in our advocacy work who will be joining us and speaking. I'm excited to introduce Angelica Canchola from Padres Unidos de Cherryland, and they are working very hard in the local community to empower community members, particularly to protect immigrant rights. And so if Angelica is here, I'd like to welcome you and please share your story about the work that you all do. Let's see. I think Angelica, I think you're still muted. Apologies.
Hola, buenos días a todos. Laura, no sé si guste platicar un poquito sobre la historia de Padres Unidos de Cherryland.
Sí, gracias. Buenos días a todos. Yo soy Laura Rodríguez, miembro de Padres Unidos y presidenta de Padres Unidos. El grupo, pues básicamente se fundó más o menos en el año 2006 con madres preocupadas por la educación y los programas que no había en la escuela Cherryland. Y pues esas madres nos juntamos para crear este grupo. Inicialmente nos reuníamos en una casa de una de los miembros. Después la escuela nos prestó un cuarto o un salón para reunirnos ahí y fue donde se creó Padres Unidos, buscando la mejora de la educación de los niños, ya sea con programas bilingües que no tenían en ese momento. Y más que nada también para que nuestros jóvenes salieran de las pandillas y drogas que había en ese tiempo. y también el grupo se dedicaba a limpieza de calles. Ahora nuestro grupo ya tiene bastante tiempo, nos dedicamos ya básicamente a traer programas para adultos, para los papás, en educación para ellos, ya sea como sus derechos como inquilinos, eh, talleres como para financiamiento, para crear crédito para ellos y clases de nutrición y diferentes clases para ellos. También tenemos pues nuestra misión que es empoderar a padres y abogar para mejorar la comunidad multicultural que hay aquí en nuestro alrededor. Y eso es un poquito de lo que hace Padres Unidos. Colaboran también con otros grupos de la comunidad que vienen siendo Maiden Boys. Maiden Boys nos da talleres para derechos como inquilino. Colabora con Cherryland Community Association. Ese está aquí en el área también de Cherryland y otros grupos de la comunidad. Si tiene alguna pregunta, pues con gusto se la puedo responder. Muchas gracias. Ah, y también trabajamos con los sheriffs en conjunto con ellos. Gracias.
Thank you so much, Padres Unidos, and thank you to Eliza for translating in the chat box. We appreciate your leadership, and we appreciate in particular how you're centering the voices and stories of most impacted neighbors. And we know that this is going to be the seed by which we grow and build community power in fighting for immigrant rights. So much appreciation to you all, and we hope to continue to follow your example. So we will now transition to the main part of our conversation today, which is the conversation itself. So we will go ahead and move on to the next slide. And so we're going to have a breakout conversation. This will last, we originally budgeted 20 minutes, but we're a little bit early in schedule. So we'll go ahead and make this a 25-minute conversation. And we will have 3 breakout rooms. The way that we're going to do this breakout room is we're going to have one breakout room for folks who would like to have their conversation in Spanish. And then we're going to have another breakout room for folks who would like to have their conversation in English. And we're going to do this by alphabetical order and first name. So if your first name is from A through M, we'll have you join breakout room 2. And then if your first name is from N through Z, we'll have you join breakout room 3. And then so I'm going to read off our breakout room conversations. Feel free to tackle these questions in whatever order and, or other questions as your organic conversation develops. But I'll read out our suggested conversation questions. First, how are organizations ensuring that they are centering the voices and interests of the most impacted community members in their advocacy? Second, what practices are we doing to help cultivate solidarity in spite of fear and confusion? Third, what state and local level advocacy legislation, campaigns, or others do we need to amplify in order to prepare for these different federal level challenges? And then finally, what effective mechanisms do we have to combat disinformation? So as you all are contemplating these questions, if you all give me a moment as I set up these breakout rooms, and then you all will get a notification when the breakout rooms are ready, and you'll have the option to choose which ones you'd like to join. So give me one moment. All right, so I will be opening the breakout rooms momentarily, and then we will also be putting the questions in the chat box for when the slide disappears. So go ahead and make your selections. We will regroup at 12:45 p.m. And then we'll have a little bit of a regroup, and folks can share out And so I hope you all have a wonderful conversation, and we'll see you all very soon.
Okay. Coming to the wrong one either, or
I'm sorry, say that again, Jessica.
are we in the breakout room right now? I don't know if I came into the wrong one or it's still a general.
I think if you click a breakout room button, if a window didn't pop up.
Oh, there we go. Okay, thank you.
And any other folks need help choosing a breakout room? If not, I can go ahead and. Okay.
That were posed. Some of the questions that were posed in the breakout sessions were around how are organizations ensuring that they are centering the voices and interests of most impacted community members in their advocacy. And there were a lot of shout outs to Aliza and our Director of Policy and Partnerships for in less than a year and stepping up in leadership to show the whole food bank and just to mirror the community and how we can center most impacted people in communities and not necessarily seeing ourselves as the experts, but always the people and the community. And Elisa just such a really, and I can not say this enough, of teaching us all how to put ourselves in the shoes of every person and every single individual, especially those who are most impacted. So that was something that was highlighted. I know that Anna here at the food bank discussed and told us a little bit about the stories of the people that are coming into the food bank and who are scared and afraid of maybe releasing some of their information, but then also, some that are really bravely sharing their stories, just paraphrasing a little bit. Um, and just posing the questions around how we can like adjust. I know that was something that Jocelyn from Helpline talked about, adjust how Helpline and other folks that are dealing with clients on an everyday basis can adjust to the current climate and share resources and one-pagers that we have. Carol shared work in the communities that are being affected in SoCal by ICE raids and seeing all the social media videos that are breaking their heart. And something around not hearing senior leadership talking about the issue that was brought up and requested that, lots of folks are requesting red cards be handed out to people in our community, the Know Your Rights cards that are happening. Kind of speeding it up a little bit. Some folks talked about how solidarity is not seeing our struggles as separate, but then that when we're advocating for human rights of other folks, it's also supporting ourselves and our family and not seeing our struggles as totally separate, but that they're rooted in a lot of the same root causes of poverty and racism. I can go on, but also wanted to open up to other folks if they wanted to share. But if not, I can continue, but really encourage other folks to share what was talked about in their breakouts.
Yeah. Jocelyn?
Yes, Iser. I'm gonna be speaking in Spanish so I could encourage Spanish speakers. Angélica, Laura, Carmen, sin obligación, pero me gustaría que si ustedes pudieran compartir un poquito más de lo que compartimos en el grupo. Creo que es muy importante que se haga saber para que es muy importante lo que están haciendo ustedes y pues, por favor, si quieren compartir.
I could give a quick recap that was talked about. I forgot who shared this, but it was just throughout the conversation with Padres Unidos and another organization, Mujeres Unidas. But something that was brought up that I hadn't really thought of, honestly, and it's really important to shed light to this too, is someone mentioned the importance of preparedness. And, if something were to happen, where are my kids going to go? Do I have family I trust? Do I have, like resources ready at hand, phone numbers written down? So I thought it was a very important point to bring up, maybe in other trainings or next conversations. And I also shared with the group that these responses and conversations really help us, our team, like lead the way to our next events. Like, we're not just planning events just to plan them, but these conversations are really what are dictating our next conversation, our next event, and what to focus on. So that was just one example of that, the conversation around how to prepare for a worst case scenario. So gracias. No me acuerdo quién mencionó eso, creo que era Angélica, pero eso era muy importante de mencionar.
All right. Thank you, Jocelyn. Thank you, Jessica, and for everyone in that breakout room. That's really wonderful. And also, I want to shout out Laura for posting so many resources in the chat. Please check that out, and we'll also be sending out those resources when we follow up by email. Well, this hour went by really fast, so we're going to have to start wrapping up. Thank you for everyone's contribution and conversation. We wanted to leave you with a few links real quick. So, Jocelyn, if we could actually skip to slide 8, where it says take action. We'll go to the next slide. So, folks, just to wrap up, we are deciding what other laws to advocate for in 2028. And to do this, we need to know what issues related to hunger and poverty are most important to you and your community. So please use this QR code or the link that I have posted in the chat box to take our advocacy survey. It only takes 5 minutes or less. And if you want to take the next step and become a food justice leader and activist, we ask you to join us, and you can use the QR code on the right as well as the other link that we'll be pasting in the chat box. Finally, if you go to the next slide, as I mentioned earlier, we encourage you to sign up to receive updates on how you can take action, whether it's our big Hunger Action Day, which will be taking place in Sacramento in person in late April, or other opportunities to meet with your elected officials, either locally in Alameda County or in Sacramento. Log on to accfb.org/advocacy to sign up and be the first ones to hear about those opportunities. And then finally, there are more resources around protecting immigrant rights, and we will be posting that link in the chat box as well. And also, please be sure to check out the resources that Laura has put in the chat box. All right, folks. Well, unfortunately, that does bring us to the end of our conversation. But even though it's the end of this conversation, it's only the beginning of our vigorous work throughout the year to not just protect immigrant rights, but ultimately fight for food justice and ending hunger for good. And we can't do that without you. And so we want to thank you for joining this conversation on strategizing and planning and building hope and power. And we know that we'll be seeing you all very soon, either in Sacramento or at the food bank, as we advocate together. So on behalf of the Alameda County Community Food Bank's policy team, I want to thank you all and hope you have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you,
Thanks so
Ether.
much, everyone.
Thank you.